In the morning, Thursday, May 29th. You are locked in to Let the Cocks Crow right here. Irie Jam Radio. If you're listening to us on 97.1 FM HD3, a pleasant good morning to you. If you're on our website, IrieJamRadio.com, IrieJamRadio.com, a pleasant good morning. If you are still home making that coffee, getting the kids already in school, or just getting yourself together to get to work, a pleasant good morning. That means you're listening to us on that Alexa app or that Hey Google app. A pleasant good morning. It is now time for us to jump to our interview this morning. A great one we're going to have. I'm very intrigued. I saw this gentleman the other day at the forum that we had, the mayoral forum here in Queens, and I am happy to welcome him to Irie Jam Radio this morning. Now, Scott Stringer is a lifelong New Yorker, born and raised in Washington Heights. Scott's 3 decades of public service here are defined by his love for New York City, and Scott has a proven track record as a reformer who knows how to make government work for people. In Scott's 30 years of public service, he's never lost faith in the promise of New York. Now, at this crucial moment, he's offering not just his experience, but his heart, the heart of a true New Yorker who knows that our city's greatest chapters are still to be written. Let us say a warm Caribbean welcome to mayoral candidate Scott Stringer. Good morning, sir.
To see you and be with you. Thank you.
Good morning. It is awesome to have you. Thank you for waking up. I know you're up early because I was watching your one of your spots yesterday, and you were talking about all the things that you're doing and how you're going to send our friend up at the White House, tell him about his self, and you do all of these things before morning. I love that, and I loved and I saw you I was in attendance at the mayoral forum, and I loved your platform. I loved your poise. I love that you understood the community that you were in. You gave me that you knew who we were. So I want to kind of expand on that conversation as it pertains to the Caribbean diaspora. Now, our Caribbean community is deeply rooted in the city's culture and economy. What is your message to the Caribbean diaspora as you seek the mayoral seat?
Look, I'm a lifelong New Yorker. So I grew up in Washington Heights. I came of age back in the day. And one of the things that I think really powered my life was understanding that this city is for everybody. Mm-hmm. And the Caribbean community, both the arts, culture, business, entrepreneurship, is one of the building blocks of this city. And as mayor, my job is going to be to make sure the community finally gets the respect and the resources it deserves, because it powers everybody. Mm-hmm. And look, I have 2 kids. You want to know the reason I'm up at 6 o'clock in the morning? Yes, it's to take on Trump before breakfast, as the commercial says. But I have a 13-year-old and 12-year-old, and we rock with them early in the morning to get them to school on time. So my wife and I are doing that. But look, my kids go to public school, and the diversity of their classrooms, that's New York. Mm-hmm. That's education. That speaks to who we are. And that's why we can never let Trump come in and take that away from us.
Now, let's talk about your top priorities as mayor. So we've already gone to the polls. We've voted you in. What are your top priorities?
Day 1, January 1st, end the corruption at City Hall. We're going to hire the best and the brightest based on merit. We're going to represent all 5 boroughs and all of our diverse communities. Second, we're going to take those vacant lots that the city owns. We're going to start building real affordable housing for working people in the city. Also, we're going to make sure that we have after school for every child in every school district. We're going to enact my child care plan, Tri-Share for child care. And that's all going to start laying the groundwork for the first 100 days. The secret to a successful administration is making sure that you come into office with a plan. That's what I did when I was Borough President. That's what I did when I was City Comptroller. And as mayor, I will be ready to build that administration. It must be ready to go on January 1st. This is the toughest, maybe the second toughest job in America when it comes to government. You cannot mess around. You have to know what you're doing, and experience is going to matter in the next couple of years.
Now, Caribbean immigrants own and operate thousands of small businesses across 5 boroughs, from restaurants and salons, a radio station like this one that you're on, and retail. What is your plan to ensure that these immigrant-owned businesses get fair access to city contracts, capital, and possible economic recovery resources?
When I was city controller, I couldn't understand why so many women and minority-owned businesses, especially in the Caribbean community, would get certified as an MWBE, as a food vendor, small business, and then they wouldn't get city contracts, right? And so for the first time as controller, I started to letter grade the agencies based on how much they're actually spending in contracts with women and minority-owned businesses. And I gave the city an F, and I held the agencies accountable. Quite frankly, they freaked out every time my report card came out because they didn't know what they were doing. I hired the city's first chief diversity officer, not in the mayor's office, in the controller's office, so that we could work with these agencies to make sure that we were giving an adequate spend. And look, the reason that's so important is because you're right. The Caribbean community is the small business mecca of this city. And yet we don't treat the community with respect because we're not giving out the contracts that would create economic activity in Brooklyn and all across the city. When I left the controller's office, that fell apart, unfortunately. But I'm going to bring back the letter grading of our agencies to hold commissioners accountable to working with, in a real way, our women and minority-owned businesses. It's the only way you can do it. Also, when you're a small business owner, you are hanging by a thread, even if your business is doing well. It's just a fact. The profit margin is so small. And that's why you have so many family members helping out, trying to do everything they can to keep the life business of a Caribbean immigrant alive in this city. So the city should have zero tolerance for businesses closing. We should do everything we can to keep the business open. Stop the fines, stop the fees, let businesses just run to make a living, feed families.
What's your plan to get housing costs down?
We got to build on city-owned land. You know, it's our land. It's your land, my land, communities. I mean, this is city-owned property. If we give not-for-profits and limited profit developers the land, then we can keep the rents low. We can build the 2- and 3-bedroom apartments that families need to stay in the city. But I also want to create a $500 million revolving fund for women and minority-owned developers, because so many times the community is being developed by people who have nothing to do with the community. They're the wealthiest people who come in and try to build. Why can't we have a loan fund to get startup costs for developers from the Caribbean community and other communities so that they have a fair shot of not just building affordable housing for the people, but also they get an equity position in that housing, right? They become the entrepreneurs, the next developers, the landlords, and they're going to understand the community from which they are building because they come from the neighborhood.
Yes.
But let's face it, the banks don't give loans to people who are starting out, so the city should. And that's why our revolving loan program, and by the way, it's a loan, it's not free money, you got to pay it back, that will get people in the development business. And I think the communities will be better served for that.
Now, Caribbean culture is vastly underrepresented in New York City public school curriculum. Will you support initiatives that incorporate Caribbean history, literature, and heritage into DOE programming?
100%. Look, this is the advantage our public school kids have over everyone else. Because of our unique culture and diversity, and that very much includes the Caribbean community, our kids are ready for the global economy by the time they graduate high school. They have interacted with different cultures and different holidays. You learn about who your friends, where your friends come from by that school holiday, or the fact that that kid is in a different religious instruction. And, you know, our kids are not hung up like, you know, previous generations, right? They know how to work across the aisle, make friends, build relationships, because they're all in it together. And that's why integration is so important. And that's why cultural diversity, programming and learning is critical. Because I want my kids to understand that whatever they decide to do in life, there's going to be a member of the Caribbean community who could be their boss, their coworker. And if they're going to have a shot at building relationships, well, we got to start teaching that in elementary school. We can't wait till people get to college and discover the world. They got to start learning about the world. And the best place to do that is right here in New York City.
Okay, Mr. Stringer, I'm going to hold you to it because I have the program. Events like the West Indian Day Parade, the Jerk Festival, our very own Arakabessa Festival, not only celebrate culture, they drive tourism and community pride. How will your administration support and invest in Caribbean cultural events and creative industries here in New York City?
Well, look, we need a Department of Cultural Affairs that continues to work to enhance our art exhibits, our cultural exhibits. You know, it can't just be Museum Mile on Fifth Avenue, right? Mm-hmm. The Met's doing okay, right?
You think?
I think they're doing okay. But you know who's not doing okay? The small mom and pop art shop. Mm-hmm. You know, I want to make sure that we not just help the cultural institutions, but also help the artists, help the cultural individuals, give them the economic incentive to apply their trade right in Brooklyn or Queens or other neighborhoods. So I'm going to be all over it. You know, I've marched down, I've danced down that parade more times than people realize, and I've been to the breakfast, and it's one of the great events in New York City. Mm-hmm. And as mayor, I hope to get invited and participate. But our government is also going to bring the receipts, because that's what people really need. You know, when the parade's over and the Department of Sanitation's cleaning up, what happens after that? Do we wait for another parade, or do we jump in and say we can really uplift the community?
What are you most proud of in your record?
You know, I've had a chance to think about it, because when I left government as controller, you know, I looked back and took stock, and I'm just very proud that in the offices I've held, we did some really big things. When I was in the State Assembly, I was the leading legislator on affordable housing, but I ended empty seat voting and passed rules reform that made the legislature more transparent. As Borough President, I diversified our committee boards, went to a merit-based selection process, took the politics out of it, and really built good community planning. And as controller, you know, I protected the retirement security of hundreds of thousands of retirees and people who will be retired. But I also did the first divestment of $4 billion from fossil fuel. Think about that. Mm-hmm. One of the largest divestments in America to save the planet. I also divested all of our holdings from gun manufacturers. I did that. And I also divested from private prisons. Everyone told me it couldn't be done. Everyone told me to stand down. Everyone was threatened to sue. But you know what? I worked with our union brother and sister trustees, and we got it done. And so when I look back, I hope that I haven't just existed in these offices, but that I actually changed people's lives. And by the way, the best work I ever did, and I still get people to say this to me, and I'll give you one example. When I was campaigning the first day of nominating petitions, I was in Stuyvesant Town in Lower Manhattan. A senior citizen came up to me and said, "You have my vote." I said, "Yeah." She said, "I want to tell you why. After Hurricane Sandy, you knocked on my door, apartment 8E, and brought me food." No. I said, "I did that?" She goes, "You did that yourself." Wow. So sometimes it's those things that you look back on and say, you know, I protected that 90-year-old woman from getting evicted. And that's the things you remember the most.
Important. Now, despite our contributions, Caribbean New Yorkers often feel invisible in policy decisions. How will you ensure the diaspora has a real seat at the table in your administration, whether through appointments, advisory councils, or community liaisons?
Couple of things. First of all, as controller and as borough president, my diverse community affairs folks were second to none. And I went out to communities and had town hall meetings, whether it wherever we went, including in the Caribbean community, Haitian community, you name it, we were everywhere. And I didn't come with a lot of folks. I didn't come with pre-arranged questions on cards. I just got up to the microphone. I said, everybody wants to ask a question. Hundreds of people, get up and let's talk it out. You know, sometimes there were boos, right? Sometimes there were cheers, but there was always a conversation. We're going to hire Caribbean people in this most diverse administration ever. So there's going to be a seat at the big table, not just at the the community council meeting to fill in the blanks. We're going to have decision makers inside City Hall. You know, when I was Manhattan Borough President, I hired at the time the highest ranking Haitian Deputy Borough President, Rose Pierre Louis, and people thought that was so important to our community. Right now, my chief of staff comes from the Asian American community. Diversity is our friend. Diversity makes you a better elected official.
Now, our current administration, Mayor Adams, how would you assess his time in office?
Look, I think Eric came in with good intentions, but I think he didn't fully understand that in order to do things, you need to build capacity in your administration. And I think he put the wrong people in place. And I think he thought that this was going to be an easy ride. He said so. And I think he missed his opportunity. And the administration went from bad to worse. I think it turned out to be chaos. It's not something I'm happy about because, you know, when you're raising two kids and if you can't be mayor, you want whoever can be to do a good job. But look, we have an opportunity in this election to fix it. And I offer the adult in the room, calm leadership that's very focused and very experienced. You know, Andrew Cuomo is walking chaos too. And why would we want to replace one chaos with another chaos? So the voters have to make a decision. And I hope in the next few weeks, as they see my commercial and they see the advertising and coming on shows like yours and, you know, making my case, we'll move the needle. The polling shows us doing much better today. Cuomo seems to be on the decline and we're moving up. We doubled our poll numbers. So we're starting to feel that we got, you know, a step, right?
Well, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, Mr. Stringer, because one, we Caribbean people, we're very passionate, right? Very particular. Yes. And if we are to stand behind you, we're going to hold you accountable. You know, as I said, a lot of times we get kind of lost or shuffled into one demographic when we stand strong as our own, and the numbers show that. And when you look at the West Indian Day parade, so I really want to make sure that our voice is heard. Thank you for even taking the initiative to come on Irie Jam Radio. We've been here for 30 plus years in the community, doing the best that we can to move Caribbean culture forward. And now I'm going to go off script here a little bit and put you under the spotlight. I'm going to ask you two questions to see if you really understand our culture. Are you doing jerk chicken or oxtail for dinner tonight?
Oxtail.
Are you washing it down with Heineken or a rum punch? Or nah, kill that. Right, Red Stripe or a rum punch?
If it was up to me, it'd be rum punch, but I don't know if my wife is going to agree with me. So that has to be negotiated. I don't have the majority stakeholder at the dinner. I'm not the majority
at
stakeholder
the dinner table. Now, Mr. Stringer, in closing, I turn the floor over to you. What is your call to action to our Caribbean listeners this morning?
Well, first of all, it is such an honor to be on your show. You could feel your passion for the community, but also your passion for New York City. So I am blessed to be on the show, and I thank you very much to make a case to all of your amazing viewers. But look, this election is meaningful, and we got to get this right. We cannot have another mayoralty on training wheels. You know, experience matters. If you want to build housing and educate kids and make sure that our wonderful Caribbean community has a fighting chance in the city, we have got to make sure that we pick the right person. I got 30 years doing this. I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I grew up uptown in Washington Heights. I am ready to do this job to fix the city, fix the agencies, and the corruption. And I'm just honored that you would think enough of me to bring me on the show this morning.
No, we do, because we do know that you're a New Yorker and you've done the best that you could with what was given. And we wish you all the best in the pollings. And I encourage our listeners to go to your, as a matter of fact, I'm going to ask you to give your websites the important dates. I know there's primaries coming up. Give the important dates so that we're armed with the information.
Well, go to scottstringer.com. Early voting starts soon. June 24th is the primary. Everyone's got to come and vote. It's ranked choice voting. So please rank me number one. If you can't rank me number one, rank me number two. I'm not looking for 3s and 4s, folks. We gotta be tough here. Rank 1 or 2. How's that? I was just ranked by Jamani Williams yesterday. So we're starting to build momentum.
We love Jamani. I was saying good morning to Jamani. That's a friend here.
Yeah, there you go. Well, got a ranking from him, but I need ranking from the people in the community.
All right, that's scottstringer.com, you said, yeah?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Stringer, wishing you all the best. Continue to do what you need to do to put New York forward. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. There you have it, our Irie Jam fam, Scott Stringer mayoral candidates. I'm going to ask you and encourage you guys to do your homework on all of these candidates. And if you see something that sparks your interest, that will work for you, do what you need to do. And our voice will only be heard if we go to the polls. Our voice will only be heard. We can only make change if we stand up and go to the polls. That is my call to action. Scott Stringer we had on today. We've had Blake on. We'll have others on. Again, this is a space where we not just bring you entertainment and all the best vibes and whatever that pertains to the Caribbean and our diaspora, but we also bring you the information that is going to help shift our community, our youth, our elderly, ourselves, right? So let's get out there and vote.